Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Tesla Motors Club podcast. My name is Seb.
I'm Doug.
And I'm Mike.
On today's episode, we'll give you our thoughts on the big ass update. We'll talk about the October 10th We Robot event. And we'll talk about the latest news on third party access to Tesla superchargers. Episode 68 starts now. Hello, Mike, Doug. Good to see you guys. What's going on?
Hey.
Just another day in paradise, sir.
Yeah, it's been a minute. Doug, you went to Europe. I went to Europe. Now it's fall, and Smart Summon is now actually smart.
Maybe.
You guys both have it?
I do. I have it, and I have actually used it for real, and it kind of works.
Yeah, well, we should say that, I when I got back from a trip, I got an update to 12.5.1, and yeah, I wasn't having any of the actual Smart Summon joy yet. And yeah, I drove to Ocean City, which is the Maryland beach area. And I tried my summon there, right? And
Brave
because
man.
the earlier and this is before actual smart summon, but in an earlier episode of our podcast, I talked a bit about summon and how it used to be cool back in 2021, I guess I would use it, and it was pretty impressive and it worked well. And then it just like stopped working well. It got nerfed, I guess. And my guess is that it got nerfed because Tesla stopped looking at the ultrasonic
Ultrasonics.
sensors, and the newer cars weren't even delivered with the ultrasonic sensors. So I wasn't really sure what was going on there. But anyway, I was like, all right, let me give this a test. I haven't used it in a while. And I tried to use it, and I'm at the far end of this parking lot after having dinner with some family members. And the car is supposed to come towards me, and and literally there's the way the parking lot is set up. There's like a little bit of a bend where they had a tree, and it literally started accelerating towards this tree. There's like a hard curve and a tree, and it's speeding up, and you have to hold on to it. So I let go, and of course there's a little bit of a latency, and then finally
Nice.
you heard it, it really slammed on the brakes because it was speeding up. I was like, oh my gosh. I
I'm,
just
I'm going to total my car without even being in it.
exactly. I was like, what the heck? So I was glad I was able to stop that. Um,
Is that the last time you used it?
that was the last time I used it before recently. Uh, but we'll get there. There were some videos going around, and I tend to think it's because um, word of that, oh, there's now this actual smart summon out, but a lot of people didn't have it yet. And I saw, some videos on the forum, and I'll just, for the people that are live with us now, I'll just, include this video that was reshared by, I think Wham Bam Tesla Cam is who they're
Yep.
called, but um, basically a car coming from being parked and just leaving a parked spot, and without ultrasonic sensors, I don't think the car, has any sense that there's another car right next to it and is trying to basically,
Right. So it's
cut off.
turning and just takes out the front of this Volkswagen.
Oh, God, it's painful.
Yeah, it's terrible. And the guy's like right there watching it
Watching.
too. Oh,
That might be my favorite part, that the dude is standing less than 100 feet away just watching from the store entrance. It's probably a good summary of the use cases of Smart Summon in general, because it's nice, the technology is awesome, but no one's really using it because they need it. Everybody just wants to
Well,
test it.
so the interesting thing is he was parked the best possible way for Smart Summon to work. He had backed into the slot. So when I used it today, for example, I had pulled into the slot, and the intent was to make it back up, make it do a turn, and then roll forward. I got halfway through the turn backing up when it lost connection to the car,
Your phone
And it
lost
said,
connection.
yes,
Hmm.
yes. It basically says, up, I can't do this anymore. And so the car just stops dead right where it is in the lane halfway through the turn. And I'm sitting there fumbling with the phone trying to get it to reestablish connection. And now I've got premium connectivity. And according to the cell phone, I had 4 bars. Now I don't know what the car had for bars. I can't see that. But my complaint earlier generations of Smart Summon was the twitchiness of the cellular connection, and apparently that's still a thing. So you will never be able to use this in a high-rise building, for example, because there's no coverage in the basements or in the lower decks because of all the concrete rebar and everything. So this is going to be a very limited use case party trick.
Well, I mean, we should back up a little bit and say that. So with 12.5.4, it seems that rolled out actual Smart Summon, and it'll take a moment just to point out the acronym for actual Smart Summon, which is definitely intentional. It's the kind of juvenile thing that Elon does. But it is better, like overall better. So I have 2 very recent sort of examples, right, to test it with. And I don't know if it's only people that have premium connectivity, but it's such a better design. Like, it's giving you the video feed of what the cameras are seeing as you're using it. And that's, it's like, okay, here's the dream, right? It's like, what was that Pierce Brosnan Bond film, Tomorrow Never Dies, and he's like in the back seat of this BMW,
driving his car,
Right.
He's like remote control, controlling his BMW from his phone, right?
Yeah.
That was before smartphones as we know it. It was like some kind of Nokia or something that flipped open and had like a little screen and a
Communicator.
joystick. Joystick, yeah. But yeah, so it's definitely a better design, but maybe it requires a little more bandwidth. I've had spotty connection with my cell phone lately with T-Mobile. I don't know if it's my phone or T-Mobile or not.
I've got so my phone's actually got dual SIMs. I've got both Verizon and AT&T, and I can pick and choose which one I want to be on at a moment or default.
For your data.
It doesn't seem to matter. It's the same. So the car can only work in AT&T, so far as I know.
Yeah, and they're on LTE for the most part too. Well, I used it at the hardware store, which like a Home Depot, which to me is the best sort of example of when you might want to use it, because
Arm load the stuff.
well, and also the way they design Lowe's is like this too. The entrance is way far away from the exit. And you park near the entrance, and then you come out with your stuff, and you're at the exit, and your car is way on the other side of the
way at the other end.
and I had a couple heavy things. I had some like pavers and some bricks and stuff. And I was like, all right, let's try this out. And another advantage I had was I was still within the envelope of the Home Depot Wi-Fi, so I wasn't at the whims of my cellular connection, and I was able to connect to my car, and I used the Come to Me. And I could, I could mostly see it, but it was kind of, a couple cars back. I didn't really have direct sight, but I could see what it could see. And I saw it pause for a pedestrian. And so when it first starts, it gives you that sort of 4-quadrant view of back, rear, and the 2 side repeater cameras. And then as it starts going, like as it's backing up, it's giving me the rear view. And as it was going forward, it's giving me the front view, and I saw it waiting for somebody, and there was a car that was doing something, and it came right to me, and I was like, hey, this is pretty cool. This is what it's supposed to be.
Now, have you seen? So in one of the parking lots I was in, the surface of the parking lot was eroded, loose gravel, and it's an older parking lot. So the car saw that and picked up the texture and says, "Oh, it had a word. It was like." Something about bad surface, and it slowed down to like 1 mile an hour. It quite literally was going slower than I can walk. And it just kind of went through the gravel.
So is that a good thing or a bad thing?
In my mind, it's a bad thing because there was literally nothing around it. Nobody was around it. No car around it.
Well, I mean, I guess it could use more information, right? Like it could detect wheel slippage to try to tell itself if that's a bad surface or not, if it needs to slow down even more. I mean, I know it sort of looks at this is drivable surface versus not drivable.
It did
And
pick up the curbs well, I'll say that. It was able to come up next to the curb and it maintained, I don't know, maybe 8-10 inches from the curb. So it can see the curbing, or at least these curbs are kind of high.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean,
Well,
we like to be critical sometimes, right? We might even dare say cynical sometimes. We like to joke, but I have to say it is pretty amazing. And
It's
you guys know
impressive.
I have an older car, so I don't get to try this stuff
mm,
myself. One of my favorite YouTube channels is AI Driver. He always posts these videos right after the release. And he was also testing it in a parking lot, probably at Costco or Walmart. And I was blown away. I thought it was really well done. And I guess you would assume that with the advancements in full self-driving, you would see that same improvement be brought over to actually Smart Summon.
I, I, I think they're being exceedingly cautious
Mm,
with Smart Summon.
well,
And I
I mean, I
can't
think
blame them for that.
it definitely is, like the user interface is better. It's
Yes.
working better. I have to say though that the thing is, I used to be able to already do this stuff though. Like I used to reliably and in the rain have the car come to me from that other from the exit of the Home Depot, and this was like up in
See,
some
my
I was
Model
up
3 never
north.
did that. It's smart. The original Summon never worked right on my Model 3
Well,
ever.
it worked fine for me, and I have a 2018 Model
Yeah.
3 now. I mean, there were times where it did something stupid, like I mentioned before, like it drove over a tree branch or something. And I think back then, all it was really using front camera, it was definitely using the ultrasonic sensors, and maybe the rear camera also. I don't think it was using the side cameras for that. I think it was mainly using the ultrasonic sensor and sort of moving slow enough that it's kind of like a blind, someone with
Kind
their
of
eyes closed,
feeling
just
its
sort of
way.
feeling out. And with the lack of ultrasonic sensors, it got totally nerfed, and so now it's
Mm,
using the cameras. And I would hope in that that demonstration we saw where the guy hit the Volkswagen, that it wouldn't do something like that now, right?
mm.
It has side cameras, and then as it starts to move, it should be able to sense the parallax of something in front of it, that, oh, that's something right next to me, even though it
Well,
doesn't have the ultrasonic sensors, and then be able to.
okay, but you
n-
brought up something I think is important to remember. It doesn't remember what's around it.
I don't think so. Yeah.
So, like when I go to pick up my kids at school, I'll be in my car an hour waiting. And what do? You play with the car because it's got all kinds of cool stuff to
Uh-huh.
play with. And I've noticed that there is a dead zone on both sides of the car with those side cameras that you can't see, or the car can't see what's next to it. And if I'm not mistaken, that Volkswagen is in that dead zone on the
Wow,
left hand
it's
side.
it's a full car length though.
The car is, but if the Tesla doesn't know where the front is,
Hmm.
it knows where the back is, but it doesn't know where the front is
Okay,
because
so
that's in
where?
that
Okay,
little
so
dead zone.
where is the? So there's a camera at the
It's like
side
right next to the
repeater.
front tire.
Yeah, I guess that's right. There's
I
another
mean,
camera that's in the B pillar that's kind of looking down forward, and
yeah.
it's not catching the edge of the car.
No, there's a few places where I can look in the cameras and people can walk by me and they literally disappear.
The thing is, though, it should have enough sense that as it moves forward, it should try to predict where the edge of that car is.
If only they
And
had ultrasonics.
if it had ultrasonics, it would see it. I mean, what about a puppy or a child or something like right in
Yeah.
front of the vehicle? It's not going to see that. It's not going to see over the hood. Um,
I'd be
Mhm.
more interested in a shopping cart. I mean, it's a, well, think about it. A shopping
you'd
cart is
rather
a,
hit a child than a shopping cart?
well, the child's got more mass in front of it than a shopping cart, which is see-through, unless one of the plastic ones at Target.
So, okay. All right. Yeah. So, yeah. Again,
Well,
another
as long as
vote
the
for
head
that
doesn't
front
fall off,
camera.
you're all
I
right.
think it should also have a side camera that's just like a 180 degree, fisheye, It should have that as well. It should have two side cameras that are fisheyes and see most of what's around it, you know.
Mm.
They get that proper bird's eye
Hmm.
view that we don't get, you know.
Well,
Uh,
since you're speculating about cameras, it might be
mhm.
a good time to talk about the upcoming 1010 event, right? Because the Robotaxi,
Robotaxi, man.
we're gonna have to talk about like what that's gonna look like, what
Maybe
hardware
it's got a
that's
front
going to
camera.
have. Maybe. I know Doug wanted that to come out for a long time. I have to say though, before we switch topics, one of the features I love most on my car, and I don't know if you guys even have this on the newer ones. I would imagine it still exists. But when I
LiDAR.
press park twice,
Yeah.
it allows me to get out the car and it'll back up. I love that feature. Have you guys ever used that?
I
I do. I vaguely remember that being a thing.
early in my
And
Model 3 days, but I think it went away.
yeah, I think that went away. So explain how it works.
So you can actually tell the car to go forward or go backwards before you park in a spot. So in
Mm-hmm.
my old house, we had a big parking garage and the spots used to be pretty tight. So you can line it up, but you're like in the middle of the lane, right? You're
Sure.
blocking traffic essentially. And
Mm-hmm.
then in my car, if I hit park twice, it
Mm-hmm.
asks you, do you want to go forward or go backward? So I would
Mm-hmm.
hit backward, get out of the car, and then it just reverses with I just have summon, right? That's all I have.
Yeah, so
But it
it's
still
using the
uses the ultrasounds.
ultrasonic sensors, yeah.
Hmm.
And it tells where the wall is or
Yep.
whatever is, and it'll stop there. Yeah, so that certainly that didn't launch on the Model 3, uh, but that's the kind of thing that might have been on the first gen Model X, and it definitely went away, but it was replaced with Summon. So before
Mm.
they talked about Smart Summon, there was simply Summon, and basically from the app you could tell it go forward or go back,
That's what
and
I
it's
have,
used
yeah.
and all of that used was the ultrasonic sensors, um, and so it would stop when it sent something in the way, either you're standing there or there's a wall or something like that. Um, and that was a
Structure.
nice, and that was a nice feature. And then, Smart Summon, I remember when that came out, I was like, okay, this is closer to actual driving because you give it a point on the map or tell it to come to you.
Right.
And
So
that was,
come here.
yeah,
Hmm.
you know, that was a major upgrade. But it's still a ways away from me getting out of the car, it going to
Hmm.
go park itself, me coming out of the store and saying, "Come get me," and I don't need to do anything else, and it comes
Well,
gets me, and I put my
I, I,
stuff in the
I
car.
I think part of the disappointment I have, Seb, is they rolled out this new smart summon, actual smart summon, and it's coming just a few weeks before the Robotaxi rollout, which is going to have to use something like a smart summon to be effective.
Hmm.
And I'm thinking, ooh, here we go. We got some real live, enhancements that we're going to be using in the real world for the Robotaxi. What I saw in the last week of using our actual smart summon, Robotaxi's in trouble.
Well,
It definitely has a ways to go.
I mean,
I mean, when Smart Summon that had to come out like what 2019, right? Something like that. In
mhm.
the fall,
yeah,
I think it was.
yeah, because
And
my Model 3 was a 2019, and I got it just like 6 months after it was out.
right, so that was the promise. And it was like, okay, we're starting to get there. It's been a good 5 years. And like calling it actual Smart Summon it's this is the Tesla way, right? Calling it actual Smart Summon admits that we we had fake Smart Summon before, right? Like calling it full self-driving means
Now it's
that we didn't actually
supervised
have
self-driving.
self-driving yet or
Yeah.
autopilot or whatever.
Hmm.
And
No, it's
so
supervised smart summon.
now, yeah, that I
Well, the funny thing is, to Mike's point, right? Full self-driving has supervised in parentheses. So the next version of actually smart summon, they're going to
Will
put
be.
parentheses and
That's
put
right.
for real this time.
Yeah, for real. We
um,
swear. Pinky thumbs.
yeah, exactly. For real this time. Before we really move on, I should add one more thing because we're talking about FSD and how it's progressing, and it definitely has been getting better. But there was an article that came out, this company AMCI testing, and it's sort of been doing some rounds, and the different sort of car blogs have been talking about it. But they did their test on 12.5.1 and 12.5.3 on a hardware 4 vehicle, and their TLDRs, they drove the thing for like more than 1,000 miles, and on average they had an important intervention every 13 miles. And they're sort of a third party independent sort of thing. I don't think they necessarily have any agenda. That they have some videos that praise certain things, but also point out failures. And 13 miles, and that's the combination of different types of road surfaces and city and highway, that sort of thing. That's a far cry from the hundreds of miles that Tesla seems to claim, or people like I won't even name check, but there are people that are very pro, like Tesla fanboys, that do their testing and talk about, oh, I was able to do this without any
San Francisco
intervention.
to LA, didn't touch it once.
Yeah. It's a little bit optimistic, and they make this company AMCI, they make a important observation. They say the confidence and often competence with which it undertakes complex driving tasks lulls users into believing that it is a thinking machine with its decisions and performance based on a sophisticated assessment of risk and the user's well-being. So the problem is, and they say, surprisingly capable while simultaneously problematic and occasionally dangerously inept. So basically what it does, and this has been observed before and has been blamed for the deaths of various Tesla fans that have died in a much less intelligent autopilot or FSD in the past, is that you're like, wow, it's doing a really good job. I don't need to pay as much attention.
Until it isn't.
Yeah, until it isn't. And it's been shown that, and I think this is definitely true, that drivers very quickly learn how to quickly and easily and automatically sort of satisfy the bare minimum of what the driver monitoring wants, right? Like very quickly sort of get the little nudge to the steering wheel, very quickly look in the right spot when it's yelling at you or whatever, and it wants you to pay attention, and then go back to whatever distracting activity you're doing instead of driving. So there is the potential for this thing to be a bit dangerous. So just something to keep in mind. So we're not there yet, and we got a ways to go.
Did you see someone in the chat called it dumb summon, which I don't know why, but I find that really
harsh.
funny.
No, I think it's Tesla that said that.
Really?
I think Tesla said dumb summon.
That's even better.
But when they say dumb summon, I think they're just referring to
The old version?
just summon, just the move forward, move back kind of thing, as opposed to the previous summon, previous version.
One last comment, Seb, about your FSD and all the technology and everything. And to Doug's point, the FSD has gotten significantly better in the last couple of years. I mean, measurably better in the last few years. I'll admit to that. However, it still does things like it actually tried to do a U-turn on me the other day, even though that there's a big sign saying no U-turn. So the car still struggles with some very basic, day-to-day functions.
Wow.
On the other hand, that's a ticketable offense I would get as the driver of the car. On the other hand, I will use FSD for 200 miles to San Diego and back, and I'll go and get into my little Bolt, which has, basic cruise control. And it's like, oh my God, I've just gone back to Stone Ages. What do you mean you can't automatically adjust between cars? What do you mean I can't see what's on either side of me now? I mean, you get very used to the tech, even though it's imperfect. And
I mean, Tesla, Elon or whoever makes the decision was basically right that this can be done with cameras, right? And I said that from the beginning. Certainly with a smart enough system, it should be able to work with cameras, because that's all we got. We got our eyes, and but we also have this brain, and we're able to assess certain situations that take into the whole context of, living in the world, as opposed to whatever, concept of the world, if that even means anything
Mm-hmm.
for this, if we want to call it an AI. Um, so yeah, it has a ways to go, and I think by paring back the sensors, yeah, we lost something. We lost, modalities that were able to tell us something about the world that it's really missing with the cameras. Like, if it's going to do with cameras, it needs more cameras. Like we said, it needs nodes, needs a wider view on the side, and cameras are cheap. Maybe not processing the information that comes from them might have a processing and
Mm-hmm.
cost. But they need to do that. Now we have robotaxis in the real world now, right?
We do.
Waymo works.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You could say it's geofenced. I don't know what they do when the weather changes, but it's running now in San Francisco. It's supposed to start running, I think, in Austin, and I think also in Atlanta, if I'm not
Mm-hmm.
mistaken. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe, Seb, you can get out there and test it out. And so, it has cameras. You need cameras, right? But it has, LiDAR also.
Mm-hmm.
LiDAR is pricey, and no one has really come out with the super cheap linear array sort of LiDAR I've been thinking, someone should do for a while. And I feel like because of Tesla's progress, maybe the push on that has sort of
lessened a
reduced, and-
Well, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole now because I asked you guys about that a couple episodes ago, but I still don't fully understand the business model behind all of this. Because with
what do you
Waymo,
mean?
it's clear to me, right? The whole purpose is to have a service that competes with taxis
Mm-hmm.
and Uber.
Mm-hmm.
With Tesla, it's not as clear to me because the three of us and Lewis have all said we wouldn't really be comfortable to let a car be driven in the city and just like drive
But
passengers around.
I think Tesla knows that.
Yeah, but the Robotaxi though, I don't see that as something that is a wise investment, especially if it's going to take a lot longer for Tesla to get that ready. But let's talk about the Robotaxi, right? We got the October 10th event
Mm-hmm.
that was pushed back a little bit. I'll give you a couple of facts, and then Doug, you actually explained to me why it was being hosted at Warner Brothers, and that
Okay.
kind of goes back to the 13
Uh-huh.
mile right
Uh-huh.
interventions.
Yeah.
But so it's happening October 10th. It's called We Robot in reference to the movie that came out in 2004,
Don't
I
say that.
Robot.
Don't say the
I-
movie.
Why
Oh,
not?
come
That's
on.
what
It
it's
was a
called
book.
that.
It was
It's
a
the book by Isaac Asimov.
I didn't see it. But you
You
can
didn't see
have
it.
I haven't read the book. No, I haven't
In
read
fact,
the
the
book.
movie isn't even this iRobot story. The movie is kind of amalgam of a couple other stories,
Yeah, yeah.
So
But I
they
like the
just called
car
it
that was
iRobot.
in it. I like the car that was
You
in
like
it.
that Audi?
That Audi was pretty slick.
Yeah, the driver safety stuff was pretty good, where you just get encapsulated in like spray foam. It's like the spray insulation you put in your house, this expanding foam, and someone has to
Yes.
cut you out of like a bunch of styrofoam.
Works.
Yeah. Good
And the steering
movie.
wheel went away too, if you remember that.
Right. That moved into the dash, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So happening October 10th, but I asked you why it was being hosted at Warner Brothers. So what
Yeah. And I think the Warner Brothers, it's on the Warner Brothers lot because basically that's a controlled space. You could be charitable and just say you got, basically your normal kind of roads and intersections, but it's all private. So
Yeah.
it's not like being on
Completely
public
controlled.
roads. So they don't need, permits from, whatever the city, or they need to shut things down because this is
Well,
clearly an experimental thing. But the other thing is that they can map the bejesus out of it. There's been photos of people walking around with like LiDAR sets on their backs, like high res mapping the place. And they've been doing a bunch of testing there too. And there's a image that came out of some funny looking vehicle. It looks like whatever they're going to call it, cybercab, cyber taxi. They shouldn't call it Robotaxi because that was supposed to be my car. My car is supposed to turn into a Robotaxi. So whatever. But they put some some shapes on it so you can't quite see what it is. And then the whole thing was yellow, I guess, like a taxi cab, like a yellow cab. So yeah, it's a very controlled environment, and it's Hollywood, baby. It's all smokes and
Well,
mirrors. So
as Doug's describing this stuff, I've got visions of the scene out of what was it, Midnight Cowboy, when Al Pacino's banging his hands on the taxi. I'm walking here. I'm walking
okay,
here.
okay, you need to get this straight. That wasn't Al Pacino. That was Dustin Hoffman, and he said, "I'm walking here." It was a single slap. I'm walking here.
I bow to the expert. But you were talking about uncontrolled and controlled environments. I'm
Yeah.
going, yep, there you go. The taxi that wasn't supposed to be in the shot.
Yeah, that was ad libbed because of they're shooting guerrilla style in New York City, and yeah.
And that's why they're on the back lot, Seb, to avoid a guerrilla style incident.
Yeah, so yeah, well, this will be interesting to see. Tesla is such a mixed bag with these kind of things, because they tend to be, I don't want to say under rehearsed, but I mean it is a like a product demo kind of thing, and stuff happens like the I don't even want to say it to keep us family friendly, but it's the OMFG event. That's what they called it, of throwing the huge steel bar bearing and smashing the window of the Cybertruck
twice.
and that's something they did rehearse. They rehearsed it, and it didn't work out for them. But that's tech demos. I mean, you can Microsoft has had just whatever. You have tons of examples of tech demos going poorly. This one, it's the safety involved, so hopefully nothing terrible happens and everything goes well. It seems to be it's going to be late in the evening again. I don't know why they have to do it like that. But when they do those kind of things, like I think about the rollout, even the Model S, which I was at actually when they first unveiled the Model S, and then like there's a Model X kind of event. Typically what they'll do is they will do it in the they'll do it like during the day. They'll have like press and stuff, so the press gets to kind of see stuff and kind of up close,
like a
and then
preview almost.
Yeah, and then they'll put them under embargo, and then then they'll have the sort of the evening event, I guess. So we'll see what.
See, the
how it
cynic,
actually
the
happens.
cynic in me says they want to do it at night to avoid issues of the sun blinding the cameras at different angles, and dealing with high
That's the
contrast
cynic, or is that
shadows.
just you? That happened to me for the first time.
Oh, really?
You constantly talk about the
I do.
camera getting blinded.
I've had several instances of that.
It happened to me for the first time yesterday, where I was driving, and then all of a sudden it was like, take control.
Yeah.
Though as it passed, it never actually kicked me out. It
It's booted me a couple times.
it was able to
although
come
sometimes
back
it just
when
complains.
but yeah, it was the first time that happened to me. But I think it was, we had a recent rain, and then the sun came out, and so it was probably a big
that, like,
mess of scatter, with like probably water droplets and whatnot.
So are we expecting any surprises, any like major reveals? Is there like a different branch of FSD they may have been testing? What are you guys expecting?
That's been our prediction, that there's been some talk of the hardware 5, and I don't know how much of a demo this will really be, and they're going to show something that may not be available for years, right? I mean, the Cybertruck
Again, the Tesla way.
The Cybertruck took 4 to 5 years to come out after unveiling. The Roadster was unveiled in 2017, so it's been over 7 years, and they're going to have another unveiling of that at the end of this year. It has been promised. I don't know if he thinks people have forgotten about that yet or not. So I would think, though, like, given the title, We Robot, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they haven't really, the way they've labeled this as an autonomy event, as opposed to a Robotaxi or Cybercab or whatever event. And we're all expecting, I mean, originally they talked about it as, like a Cybercab type event. So probably I would bet Optimus will take a,
Oh yeah.
will take a
Optimus is going to be driving.
Honestly, that's my prediction. When that thing
Nah.
rolls up, there's going to be 4 Optimus sitting inside. That's
Oh,
my
maybe.
prediction.
I don't know
Yeah.
that. Wow, could they manage Optimus to get out on its own? I have a hard time just getting out,
Well,
so I
if
don't
it's
know
the
if
guy in the
Optimus could
suit,
get out.
if
May
the
just
guy in the
wave like the
suit,
queen.
Yeah, maybe the queen waves like
Little
this.
princess
It's
wave,
a
yeah.
rotation. Yeah, I don't think that will happen. They could have Optimus in it. I feel like, there's been a lot of stuff, and we talked about in the last episode about some humanoid robots that other companies are making. And I want to point out actually that, I talked about I think the name of the company was Neo, and the robot was called the X1, or it might be the other way around. The company might be X1, and the robot might be called Neo. And that was kind of impressive, but I think what I failed to point out and wasn't necessarily clear when I first saw it was that all the motions and stuff that it did was basically teleoperated. It was just remote controlled, right? And a lot of the demos we've seen of the of Optimus has also been just sort of teleoperated. Now,
Yeah.
that's a legit thing to do in terms of training the AI, right? I mean, that's if you
Yeah,
want it
but not when you're selling the robot itself.
wow, I mean, what are they selling? They're not selling anything really yet, right? They're just selling the idea, the concept of the future. And that's what this event will be too, because who knows how many years it will be before whatever we see will actually be available. Um, so yeah, I think they'll have to have some Optimus stuff there because they want to show that they are doing impressive stuff too with it. And there are a lot more people in this space now, and it's more accessible now because of honestly because of things like better magnets, so you can make smaller, more powerful motors, and be able to make the thing be sort of human sized, and actually be able to walk and stuff like that without using huge hydraulics or whatever. So
Well,
we'll
if it's
see.
not too late that day, we may do a live stream, I guess. And if it's past 9 p.m., past my bedtime, you guys have to do it without me.
Yeah, we'll try to do a live stream as we learn more about the event, and we'll just sort of watch it and react to it in real time.
Yeah.
And,
Awesome.
I'm kind of crushed I didn't get an invitation. That's just an oversight, I'm sure.
yeah, I used to go to all these things, and I don't get invited anymore. But that is what it is.
Yeah, they barely tolerate me on X. So
Well, let's see what's in store for the Robotaxi. I'm definitely excited. It's only like 2 more weeks, so looking forward to it. The other thing we wanted to cover is, Mike, I think you had pointed out that GM is the latest to now have access to the supercharger network.
So the floodgates opened about 3 days
Mhm.
ago, 4 days ago, where GM and Tesla officially announced that all the Bolt owners of the world, along with a few lyrics are out there, can now flock to the Tesla superchargers, some of them, and use them, assuming they can get their hands on a adapter. The problem, as you can see with the Mach-E, is you end up having to park sideways or take up 2 slots because most of the cables are too short. It's a bit of a struggle. Now, um, I will be upfront with everybody in the podcast. I've got 2 Teslas in the family and a Bolt. I'm on both sides of the fence here.
Mhm.
So of course I went out and got my adapter right away. I did not get GM's adapter. I bought a third party, and I was out at the supercharger like 2 days later trying it out. It's clunky. It does work. It's clunky. I will say I was impressed the fact that GM was able to talk to Tesla seamlessly and get the charge enabled without any issue. That was one of the concerns I had. But it does exactly as advertised. I mean, you pull in, you plug in, go to the, and I had to use the GM app. I could not use the Tesla app. I suspect the issue there is if I had a Magic Dock and not an adapter, it'd be different because it'd have the little pad on the side of the charger. But or if I paid my $12 a month membership fee, I might have been able to use the Tesla.
Wait, so
another
what's the experience? Like, how does the GM app work? You take a payment with the
badly.
GM app, or you
It's
activate the
badly.
supercharger? Huh?
So, the Tesla app shows you how good software can be, and the GM app shows you how badly it can go.
Hmm.
Um, that aside, if when you pull into the charger, you have to use, or I use the GM app. You go to the map, you find the charger, you click on it, and you say, "I want to charge here," and you tell it what charger. You find the number on it, and you key that in. It does a little handshake back to Tesla, says, "Good to go, start charging," and you immediately get hit with a fee, like a $10 fee, because they preload the account with some money to make sure you can actually pay for what you're doing. Now, in my case, my charge came to $7, so that's what the final bill was on the credit card, was 7, not 10. But it
Mhm.
was a little disconcerting that there's no information up front that says, "Hey, it's going to be X number of cents a minute, or we're going to hit you with a preload fee." There's none of that by GM. You can go to the Tesla app, or excuse me, you can go to the Tesla website on the superchargers, and it will tell you what it will cost. But
Mhm.
GM's not that friendly.
Well,
So
it's might be a different rate too, right? I thought the non-Tesla is supposed to pay a bit more than the.
they do. They do
Mhm.
anywhere from 50 to 60 cents a kilowatt. Some of the superchargers are time rated, but most are not. It's a flat rate.
Hmm. Well, to
So,
me,
but it
the
works. I mean, after dealing with EA and ChargePoint and EVgo and some of the other third parties out there, uh, the supercharger works. I mean, they
and
all almost always
I'm
work.
yeah, I'm glad for it, and I'm happy for these to these vehicles to have that experience and for the spread out. But I feel like a couple things happened, right? I mean, right on the cusp of all these other manufacturers adopting the Tesla standard, the whole supercharger team got fired, and
Mm.
Yep.
that
Yep.
definitely threw things up in the air in terms of people not knowing what's going on, and then I think it
Oh,
caused
there's been a
a
real impact.
delay, caused the
So
delay
we
of the adapters coming, and some
we have
uncertainty.
a site just 2 miles from my house that's got the Magic Dock. It's got I think it's 12 stations, or maybe it's 16 stations. Magic Dock. It's been ready to go for 2 months now. I mean, it was actually working. You could actually go there and charge for free for a couple weeks, like almost like a soft opening. And then they turned it off, and it hasn't come back since, and nor has it gone live. And it's been over 2 months.
Mm.
What we're reading on the boards, our TMC board, is it failed final electrical inspection. But I would think of final electrical, they could probably knock that out in a week or less. But I thought for sure it'd be open by the last holiday, Labor Day, and it wasn't. It missed that. So it's still down.
Well, I mean, the main issue though, I mean, all that will be worked out, and people got rehired and that sort of thing. But the main issue
Hopefully.
still is stuff like this, stuff
Mm.
like the
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
the
Oh,
car,
yeah.
the other cars not being able to park the same way the Teslas do, and thus taking up multiple spots. Um, that's an issue. I would hope that there are newer stations that have longer cables, and like the Magic Dot type stations.
The version 4s have a longer cable.
Yeah, I would hope that like these third party vehicles, like whatever map they have of charging stations, that basically they just wouldn't be they wouldn't be routed to these kind of chargers um, where they're gonna have to do crazy stuff like that because the cable won't
So
reach.
neither Tesla on their app nor does GM on their app flag that as an issue.
Yeah, let's see. I mean, on our maps, we at least see what power level is available,
They
and
do
that
tell you what power
maybe
level,
gives you some sense of that may
and
give you some
the
correlation
Tesla,
to what type
yeah,
of
and the Tesla web
station
app
is.
will tell you if it's a Magic Dock or if you have to bring your own adapter.
Okay, that's
So they
useful.
tell you that, but they
Mhm.
do not say anything about the parking short cable issues. In fact, the parking's
Yeah.
not addressed by either manufacturer directly.
Now, one
It's
thing I would
all
really like to see is Tesla adding dedicated stalls for these non-Tesla EVs. And I'm going to be honest with you, if that was me in that car right there, I would be so embarrassed to park it like that. I would probably let it run out of juice and have it towed rather than pull in like this, or I'd be handing out candy bars to apologize, but I would not I just wouldn't do this
Well,
unless I was at
I would hope someone parking like that is just simply uninitiated. I've seen Teslas park like that because the person is so
true,
confused as to
true.
how to, like the concept of just backing into the
Or
spot.
they can't
you
back
know.
in. They don't know how to back up their car. I've seen that.
they
Yeah,
need smart summon.
or simply auto park, which
Yeah.
works better than it used
Yeah.
to. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I making that distinction. I mean, we've talked before, like the etiquette should change a little bit, you know, like instead of being, how did I put it? Instead of the urinal etiquette, it should be the high school lunch table
Well,
etiquette, you know,
it's
that all the GMs or whatever go sit on their side of the stalls, you
it's
know, because they can
it's
all
funny,
line up
Doug,
against each
because
other.
when I went out and tested my Bolt, it was 5:30 in the morning because the charger nearest me is a very heavily used charger. So trying to do this at 5 p.m. would just be insane. You'd guaranteed a bad experience for everybody. But even at 5:30 in the morning, the two folks that were already at the chargers, when I pulled up and started plugging in, you know, one guy just sit there and stared at me like, you know, what are you doing?
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't think everybody's gotten the memo that Bolt owners
Yeah.
can use chargers now.
Well, they may have even thought that you're lost, right? Because I mean,
Hard to say. I mean,
you never know. Like some new EV drivers, they may pull up to a station where they can't
they can
charge.
use it. Yeah.
And
And
that's been an issue over the years. So
yeah, and I told you guys I rented a Porsche Taycan in Europe this summer.
I'm so jealous.
A very nice car. The interesting thing, and this kind of goes back to the point you made, Mike, with different apps, different experiences. I was
well, looks like we lost
Uh-oh.
Seb for a minute mid sentence. All right, here he is.
that was for added drama.
Is that what that is? All right.
So to your point about apps, one of the things I noticed is I was using CarPlay the whole time, which was great. I mean, my wife's car
Sure.
has it. I've never wanted it in my Tesla because I think the entertainment system is great. But so I was using CarPlay, but then when I had to charge, I had to use the built-in navigation, which
Yeah.
still
How did that work
stank.
out for you?
Not well, not well. And then also the availability of chargers is very limited in Europe. I thought at least, right?
Really?
And
Really?
admittedly, I only had it for 3 days. But
Okay.
like there was one McDonald's that had a really fast supercharger. I think it was 350 kilowatts. And so I would get up really early because they only had two stalls. And then each time they had some sort of construction van that was also electric, like taking up the
Oh,
spots. So I mean, it's just the sort of the non-Tesla experience at the moment. So I actually appreciate that Tesla is doing their part to change that.
now that's been my experience at EA here domestically is we've got 3 or 4 50 kilowatt stations nearby, and they're typically pretty busy because they're there. And the two 350 kilowatt installations we have, which if they've got 6 and 8 chargers, there's always a line. Always. You know, there's more people who need to use CCS high speed charging than there are plugs available. Although they have their own issues. There's nothing like having 6 350 kilowatt stations, 4 100 kilowatt stations, and the Bolt is plugged into the 350. so, so you know, everybody's got their issues. You know,
And does the Bolt even know? And do people take, you know, the time to
no,
educate?
the Bolt doesn't know. It's just a plug. All they know they can charge.
Yeah.
Most people I talk to who are not enthusiasts really don't have much technical knowledge about the car.
Mm-hmm.
They just know that the plug goes in, and if it charges, they're happy. I mean, there's nothing like watching a Rivian trying to charge at a 50 kilowatt station. You know, they're going to be
Yeah.
there for hours
I
at
mean,
best.
what would solve this is the idea we've discussed before, where within the nav, when it's navigating you to a charging location, that it directs you to a specific stall, and it could negotiate
Yeah.
that kind of stuff of like, this is as fast as this car can
Mm-hmm.
charge, and it should only it should be using this one,
So
and that
EVgo
would solve a
has
lot of
that
problems.
option in a
Mm-hmm.
way. You can reserve a stall. Not all of them, but some you can actually set a reservation for a
Well, I
certain
mean,
time.
would it be smart enough to tell you you're reserving the wrong stall? You
I
should
don't know.
reserve the slower
My
stall.
I haven't tried it, but my thought would be, well, if somebody's in the stall trying to charge, how are you going to get them to move? You're going to pull up
Yeah.
and say, "Hey, I reserved that," and they're going to say, "Yeah, whatever, go away."
Well, one way to get their cable out is one thing that we wanted to talk about.
There you go.
Segue
Which,
master.
I mean, this hit the news a while ago, I feel like, and we all talked about it briefly, but we haven't talked about it on the show. So there's this company called EVject, and Doug, I think you wanted to show us the website. Here we go, which has a really cool product. And Doug, I'll let you kind of summarize your thoughts, but very interesting technology.
Yeah. Honestly, this has been an issue since the beginning. Since the Tesla Roadster from that started deliveries in 2008. And the issue is that Tesla smartly designed the vehicle to be immobilized when it's charging, right? To keep people from forgetting that they're plugged in and then just driving
Drive
off
away.
and ripping the charging station out of the off the wall or whatever. Because this is a common issue with gas vehicles.
Oh
Have you
yeah,
ever seen? I have seen someone
I
Mm-hmm.
have
driving down the
the hose
road
dangling behind the
with a
car.
hose dangling and just bouncing off, and they're designed to break away because that
Yeah,
happens, so that you don't bring the whole gas station down with you. Um, and so, yeah, so the car is immobilized while it's charging. And even back in the Roadster days, we had a couple threads earlier, people kind of concerned where they had an instance where they're charging their car and there's some vagrants kind of looking around because it's a fancy looking Tesla Roadster. And particularly, some of our female members not feeling particularly safe. Like, hey, I'm in my car, and back then your car needed to charge for hours, and I'm in my car, and there are weird people, kind of stalking around, and I literally can't just drive off. I need to get out of my car and become in a less protected situation to unplug it to then drive away. So that can be concerning. So, and here it is, quite a few years later, and it's still an issue. And also, the location of some of these superchargers, they're kind of, hidden away from the road. A lot of times they're behind the shopping center in an alleyway, kind of near the loading dock sort of thing. And these days, since they charge faster, you're more likely to just sit in your car and be entertained. And then, yeah,
yeah.
there might be something weird going on just outside your car, and you feel like, okay, I just want to leave. You don't have to get out to unplug. And so this company called EVject, and they're not a sponsor or anything, but they made a device that I think solves a very specific problem. And a lot of people will say, well, it's not a real problem anyway, but it's a peace of mind kind of thing that if I had to, I could just drive off. And basically what it is, it's a breakaway device. You press that stop charging, and somehow, I'm not sure how, but it lets the car think it's no longer plugged in. So the car is no longer immobilized and you can drive off. And it's designed to break away. And it breaks away, and then the cord, without needing too much force, so that you're not damaging the charging station, and you're not damaging your own charging port on your car, and you can drive off and evade whatever danger might have been there. I don't remember how much it costs. I think it costs probably more than $100.
It's $299. It's not cheap.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like
it's not a
300.
cheap device,
Yeah.
and it's a single-use kind of thing. You've left half of it, by the way. Right? You left the bulk of it at the charging station. I think though, you don't expect to use it that often. I think maybe they replace it either free or at a discount once you've used it. And I think it solves a very real problem. Now, an issue came up. Tesla has certain like temperature sensors and stuff in the connector to make sure there's no issue. Like if it gets too hot, it will reduce the charging rate so that there's no thermal runaway, and that you don't damage or start a fire or anything like that. And so this piece of equipment in between the car and the plug was either obfuscating that data or just giving it a temperature that's too low or not a real temperature measurement for safety. And so I think Tesla, basically had given them a cease and desist and had threatened to sue them. And it's funny because when that happened, you see all the fanboys talking about, oh, you don't need this thing anyway. Like, what is this crappy thing that's going to damage your car? And, just a lot of people hating on it, saying it's not useful. But fortunately, they came to an agreement, as far as I understand, with Tesla that perhaps they've either extended the temperature sensors or they're doing something. I don't know that it's yet available, but they're doing something that to comply with what Tesla wants, and that they'll be able to continue selling this device.
The website says pre-orders are available.
Yeah, so I think they have a fix in line. I don't know if it's quite implemented yet, but
we should add it's also available for our CCS fans. So it's not limited for just Tesla, but they've expanded the market a bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a niche device, but I think it solves whether or not it's a real problem. It's an actual fear that some people have, and this gives people some peace of mind. And for that, it's probably worth it.
Well, there have been some places I've charged that are, shall we say, marginal regarding lighting and just the environment. I mean, it's not as bad as some of the hydrogen charging stations I've gone to, but nevertheless. When you're at a charger and you're in the back of a shopping mall area and there's no lighting, in the parking lot and it's dark, not where you want to send your daughter or your wife to.
Yeah,
I'm with you. Definitely. I'm actually surprised that Tesla hasn't come up with a solution yet. Didn't they say for the new Roadster, there's going to be a cold thruster package? It'd be cool if you could just shoot the cable out with the cold thruster. But I mean, I'd love to have one in the trunk as an option. I think it's a nice idea. For me personally, I typically exit the vehicle when I charge, and I'm typically shopping, eating lunch, stuff like that. But I guess that's because my car charges slowly. So I see the appeal here.
Well, I mean, I do that also. I'll get out and, especially on a long drive, it's about time for a bio break or whatever they want to call it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I am surprised that Tesla hasn't had their own solution yet, and they will need one for robotaxis, right? And I think the solution they've been going towards is like inductive charging, which surprises me given the losses of inductive charging. They could have done something with some contacts or something opens up under the car or something like that to have a physical connection. But
like
inductive does.
Cars.
What's that? Yeah, but see, inductive does make things a lot
with the
simpler.
pin sticking up.
Yeah, I used to play slot cars. That's a good way to do it. Except you start to have things like oxidation on contacts and
mud, snow, salt.
Especially if it's underneath the car. They could robotize the
Didn't they have that thing?
Station.
The snake thing?
What was that?
It was like 10 years ago.
The snake. Yeah.
Yeah. That snake was, that was a new hire. It was some project that guy had previously worked on. So the snake was funny. It was interesting, but complete overkill. You don't need that many degrees of freedom. You only need like maybe 4 degrees of freedom maybe. And
I think Optimus will be the new gas station attendant pretty soon. He's going to be just
you
hanging
can do
out.
that, but you want it to be cheap, right? And a general purpose Optimus is probably too much for that. Simone Gertz, I don't know if you're familiar with her. She's a YouTuber. She made a kind of a crappy robot to automatically plug in her. I think she called it the truckla. She like took a Model 3 and cut the cut the top off.
That was cool.
Turned into kind of a truck, and that makes more sense than anything else I've seen. But I think they may go with inductive. I just want to know how much loss. Like you're gonna lose at least 10%. I think. On an inductive charger, and that would be with some kind of self-centering, and it just seems to me at that point you might as well have a compartment that you could have a little brush that runs and cleans it off and opens it up. That so I don't know what they're gonna do.
We're back to swapping batteries again.
Well, that has
for
its
Robotaxi.
own
That's not a bad idea. Yeah.
I mean, they do it in China, as we discussed before, with some taxis, and
Yep.
they do it rather quickly. So anyway, yeah, I'm surprised Tesla doesn't quite have their own solution yet for this kind of thing. But I think this probably won't be a product you need forever. Maybe Tesla will come up with a solution. But the truth is, you got an install base of tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of vehicles already, and some people may want them. And I think this is a fine device. This the EVject. It's aptly named as well.
Yeah.
So.
Well, let's hope Tesla doesn't shut it down either through cease and desist or a software update that will nerf it. But definitely a nice idea.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Anything else to add before we wrap it for the day? No?
Nope.
I think we've talked enough.
We sure have. Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining. And if you want to follow us on social media, you can do so on Twitter and YouTube. And you can, of course, join us on the Tesla Motors Club website. See you in the next one.
Laters.